Hello, Ben.
Hello. How are you doing, Kazi?
Um, I am doing well. I'm coming off of a Noahide stream,
Mm-hmm.
which was um, the first episode of a series we're going to have of reviewing Brit Shalom, the practical guide for Noahides, or their version of a Shulchan Aruch. So it was very exciting. To be honest, it was emotional for me as well. Um, so yes, it's very nice.
Yeah.
Um, unfortunately, unfortunately, and fortunately, I guess in this crazy world we're living in, there is serious talks right now in Israel. The cabinet right now war cabinet is discussing right now the captive deal.
Mm-hmm.
Is I don't know if you're aware of the details or not, but
I've seen multiple details yet. So I don't know what the
well, I guess anyone that's interested could go look. But it's they're essentially releasing something like 50 people, mothers and children, and
Mhm. Yeah.
you have now tensions between the parents of some of the parents of the kidnapped, some of the parents or family members of the kidnapped members are disagreeing between themselves. Then you have a disagreement between that camp and the camp of people that actually already lost family members.
Mm-hmm.
And generally speaking, it's just a horrible, horrible scenario right now that we're in. It's amazing that we're getting them back, but the sense that we would be leaving some people still behind. Um, So I guess I hope our learning is in the sake of, again, the clarity of mind of our leaders, that they have the clarity of mind to make the right decision, that they're guided well, that hopefully our enemies will honor their word as much as possible. If we could hope for honor among
Mm-hmm.
among such horrible people. Um, Yeah, and relief, obviously, just relief for the families. They're going through a tremendous amount of trauma and stress. So
Yeah.
I hope this learning and all the good we do in the world, that some of those good deeds get written up for their sake as well.
Yeah.
But on that sad note, the family's doing well, thank God.
Yeah.
Work work is going well. I have clients finally started to come back in. So that's nice. So it's nice to be presenting some clients that have been waiting for a while for their homes. So I'm giving them their homes. So that's very nice, and it's emotional for them as well. Um, how about you? How are you doing?
Yeah. I'm doing well. It was cool. I tuned into some of the last stream that you were just doing, the Brit Olam. So
Yeah.
that was cool to see.
Yeah, it's cool to see. To be honest, I mean, I sort of I framed it this way, but it's very different than, let's say, a class like this, even, um, or let's say the general conversations we have, which is more free flowing, and I'm sort of going off the cuff, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I was making it clear that this is like less Chazi's opinion and
Right.
more just like, this is what the sources say. I mean, even here, we're really doing that. I'm not telling you like I think X, but I'm more flowy with this. And there, I wanted to be like a little more particular. So there's, I mean, arguably you could say I should have more reverence when we're doing this, but there was a sense of reverence basically where I needed to. I'm uh, I'm representing Hashem in a certain sense, or His
Mm-hmm.
Torah. I need to make sure I do so carefully. So yeah. Um, okay. Without further ado, let's jump into this, and we finish chapter 3. We're moving on to chapter 4. You leave open over here the last one we finished, which is number 18. We were
Yeah.
talking about how Rabbi Eliezer ben Chisma was talking about the kinin and the
Mm-hmm.
perperot, basically talking about how seemingly you would think that the sciences which are very exact, uh, um, astronomy and geometry, you would think the truth would be there, and that's why that would be like on the hierarchy of things that we should focus on the Torah, would be that, because it's also in a certain sense it's praising God's name because it's very exact. However, we say no, the Torah's focus is, it's not that that's not important, but that's more of the dessert, or it's the hors d'oeuvres, or it's the toppings, but the basic is really the Torah, and the way the Torah expresses itself practically on the ground, and giving a sense of here of the sort of the limitations of that framework, which is even dealing with the laws of purity between a husband and wife, and the equations that are needed to figure that out. Same thing with kinin over here, which is the bird offerings that are given, and there too, because two of these categories sort of touch upon each other, because you could say if you're using geometry or math for Torah purposes, then it gets included already inside the basic and ideal versions of Torah. So there's different senses of how we could interpret this verse. And we also mentioned here, which I guess we'll frame it, which is the Rashi, the famous Rashi gives an interpretation to the first verse in Genesis, which was, in theory, you would think that would be the book that Aristotle would be most interested in, right? Astrophysics, and we're talking about like the sciences and the metaphysics of creation. However, Rashi says, all I care about is a practical halacha, because I want to know how, while yes, that's interesting, ultimately the conversation God is having with me, how is that applied on the ground? What can I derive from this? And in a certain sense, that's also what was happening with this this first class with the Noahides, which is there's a very, there's a general conversation, which is like be a good person, but those who want to attach themselves to God and walk in his path, how do we do so practically? What does that mean on the ground?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'll just jump on this as well, because I had a few examples that I was thinking about as well. But yeah, there is, especially for your first point about having you have this quantifiable data that you're working with, like what you said, like the more geometrical or astronomical calculations. And they are supposed to be, like you said, the hors d'oeuvres, or not the main thing. You have more of the principles. The Torah is the thing that is the main thing. And what it made me think about as well is two of my experiences, which one is working as a filmmaker. So if I'm a director and I'm working with an actor and they're supposed to play a character in a play or in a film, then I could just tell them how to play a specific scene and what they should say in that scene. And that could be very quantifiable, very specific. But if I explain to them the context of the character, the principle, its life story, then they are able much more to play with that, and they understand how to, like, across scenes and across the story, they understand how to play with that. So
I think that's a very good analogy, and it also reminds me of something that we discussed on a few chapters ago. Well, not chapters ago, but sections ago, with regards to a kol tzafui v'reshut netuna. Everything is ordained or foreseen, but we still have choice. And in a sense, it's, you could be the director that is very much like, I want you to do X, Y, Z, and then like it's very ordained. He sort of has his vision of how this is going to happen. And there's your Clint Eastwood that just sort of like lets it happen, so to speak. Now, the actor knows that it's not a comedy, or he knows that it's not like a horror film. So like there's still a limit, and that's how we sort of in this case, the director knows what to expect. However, he doesn't know exactly how it's going to manifest on the ground. And while he sees it, you could say that he says like, this is exactly what I was looking for. And like, I knew something like this was a potentiality, but now that I see it expressed, this is sort of what I want. And this is what I'm interested in. And here too, this alludes to a conversation that we had in the last class with the Noahides, which was, there's this extraordinary verse in Genesis where God is basically saying, let's see what man calls the animal. decides to name the animal. And the stark difference with that and Islam in the Quran, where it mentions how God told Adam the names of the animal.
Mm-hmm.
There's much more of a submission to God telling you what the reality is, to with Adam, God saying like, yes, I created the field. However, let's see how you now play around with this, and I'm going to sort of give my seal of approval on to that, as long as it's happening, with the right intentions and through the framework that I've built.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right. So let's head into number 4.
Let's do it.
All right. בן זומא אומר, איזה הוא חכם הלומד מכל אדם, שנאמר, מכל מלמדי השכלתי, כי עדותיך שיחה לי. איזה הוא גיבור הכובש את יצרו, שנאמר, טוב ערך אפיים הגיבור ומושל ברוחו. Can you make it a little bigger? מלבד עיר. איזה הוא עשיר? השמח בחלקו, שנאמר, יגיע כפיך כי תאכל, אשריך וטוב לך, אשריך בעולם הזה וטוב לך בעולם הבא. איזה הוא מכובד המכבד את הבריות, שנאמר, כי מכבדה יכבד ובוזה יקל. Do you mind reading it in English?
Yeah, for sure. So Ben Zoma would say, who is wise? One who learns from every man. As is stated from Psalms, from all my teachers I have grown wise, for your testimonials are my meditation. Who is strong? One who overpowers his inclinations. As is stated, better one who is slow to anger than one with might, one who rules his spirit than the captor of a city. Who is rich? One who is happy with his lot. As is stated, if you eat of toil of your hands, fortunate are you, and good is to you. Fortunate are you in this world, and good is to you in the world to come.
Okay. One second. Why is this twitching on me? Here we go. בסדר. So, Ben Zoma Omer. This is something that we had to memorize in school when we were younger. And his name.
This is a heavy hitter, right here. This has one of my favorite lines.
What? Ezu asher samach v'chalko?
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Even
my
before
son,
I knew it was coming from Pirkei Avot.
My son says that begrudgingly. He doesn't like them, but I tell him that often when he's complaining about his magnetiles or something. Okay, so Shimon ben Zoma. It's Shimon ben Zoma. We just see him as Ben Zoma, but it's Shimon, the son of Zoma. He is known as definitely one of the heavy hitters, like you just said. He was a great scholar. There's a line about that if he comes in your dream, like if you see after he died, if you see Ben Zoma in your dream, you should be expecting like a lot of wisdom, because he was symbolic for wisdom. Mm-hmm. He's his pal who goes into the pardes with him, Ben Azai. Both of them are known to, ironically, they never became rabbis. They never had smicha. But they were known to sit in front of the rabbis and ask questions, and the rabbis sort of invited them to be challenged in a certain sense, because they were really very novel. One of his most famous stories is him entering the Pardes with Ben Azai as well. There's different versions in the Yerushalmi, in the Babylonian Talmud and the Jerusalem Talmud with regards to who dies and who goes crazy. But in the Babylonian Talmud, it's he goes into the Pardes together with his rabbi, Rabbi Akiva, his study partner, Ben Azai, and another rabbi named Elisha ben Avuya, later called the other Acher. And Rabbi Akiva is doing his best to prep them. This would be basically 4 rabbis who are experimenting with the Kabbalic tradition, and there is probably some sort of them getting themselves into some sort of meditative and trance state, so to speak. However, and as we know also today, One of them came out of this journey unscathed, which was Rabbi Akiva. And as we said, Ben Azai, he dies. Ben Zoma goes crazy, and Acher becomes a heretic. But this is a warning story, even for the people today looking to go down the route of psychedelics, where you could come out as any one of these characters, and what requires a lot of preparation to do so. All right, so Ezu Chacham Halomed Mikol Adam Shenemar Mikol Melamdai Heskalti. So we're seeing over here, so someone has to see truth in every man, and in the details and in his depth. This is someone that could see this, because even though you're looking at someone and you know he has shortcomings, right? Like you're a wise man and you're aware of every detail, and you could discern very well, yet we're telling you to still look at someone that potentially has shortcomings, and understand that even from him, you could be learning as well.
Yeah.
There's another sense which we say, Ezu Chacham Haroet Hanolad, one that could anticipate what's going to come along the bend. And these things go together. The only way you could become someone that is that has that level of foresight is someone that has spent a lot of time understanding and learning different perspectives and different vantage points from all people. And only then you actually start building yourself an actual, if we're touching the elephant, you want to really be talking to anyone touching the elephant, so you could recognize and try to formulate for yourself that picture of what you're actually touching. And again, this is stressing that each, and we're talking about over here Adam again, man, and not specifically Jew, and which relates to Ashrei Adam Shekol Adam Nia B'Tselem, Notzar B'Tselem, every man was made in God's image. Here too, everyone has a unique perspective. Each human is different, and that unique perspective, and that doesn't mean necessarily about all topics, but there is a topic and there's something over there that you could learn from them and still understand from them as well. Also, we see in King Solomon that his family said about him that he was Yachkam Mikol Adam Afilu Cheresh Shotev Katan, that he was smarter than all, even smarter than a deaf man, a fool, and a child. But another way of reading it is that he was so wise that he was so wise that he understood how to extract wisdom from the deaf, from the fool, and from the blind man, and from the child. Again, here too, we could see he's seemingly, you would think that there would be no value or no wisdom to be gained from these individuals. King Solomon, who was known as the wise king, is aware that even from there you could extract wisdom as well.
Yeah, I would even to stress it more. I would even think that you can learn even from your most bitter enemies, because they sometimes help you define yourself in much more specific ways. Like, how are they trying to hurt you? What exactly are they doing? And they help you to see, oh, okay, this is what they think I care about, or at least that in that respect. So
definitely, and that's the only way you could really understand. And in a certain way, this goes back to Jacob and Esau, which is, I mentioned this in the little portion, the little parsha portion I sent out, which is that we could see Jacob is realizing that he's living in an incomplete world. In an incomplete world, you need to use the tools that you're given. So through wisdom, or not necessarily through deceit, but rather understanding how deception works, to better understand how the world actually works in front of you. So even like you said, even from your enemy or from someone that is bad, you could still learn from them how they're behaving.
Yeah.
There's another interpretation that talks about how the wise man can learn from every man, because a great rabbi, a great scholar knows how to discern. But like a young student should still be wary who he's learning from. because if you, and this goes back to having a bad neighbor, or like you just said, learning from someone that is your enemy, those are dangerous waters you're walking in. So you might be exposed to a tremendous amount of knowledge by doing that. But the question is, can you walk out unscathed, so to speak? Okay. Ezu gibor hakovesh et yitzro, shenemar tov achapay megibor v'moshel berucho menaked ir. Who is strong? One who overpowers his inclinations, as it is stated. Better one who is slow to anger than one with might. One who rules his spirit than capture a city. Okay, so we could see even in the translation over here what they're alluding to. So usually we're talking about like, a hero is the attributes of our someone that has like a tremendous amount of physical strength. We think about in Hebrew Shimshon HaGibor, Samson, the hero who wasn't necessarily the man of spirit or had pearls of wisdom to give us, but was more physically strong at the end of the day. But we're saying it's on the contrary over here. It's really about someone that could look inwards and control their own inclinations and conquer their own desires. And this is, again, it's amazing that this is written then, because, now you have mindfulness and apps about doing this and going to a therapist, but they're stressing over here that ultimately that is the real hero. Before you even walk out of your house, who are you, and are you challenging yourself?
Right. So this is the guard in your gates. So it's not just about guarding like your behavior at the bottom of the funnel, meaning like when the rubber hits the road, like your actions. You don't want to just police your actions, which is kind of, I guess, is tantamount of a capture of a city. You want to go even further back and be able to control or have some, or rule your spirit, rule your mind, your moach, in terms of how that it dictates the rest of your body.
And this is very much Jordan Peterson, clean your room, right? So before you're going to talk about global warming, so to speak, which is, let's say, conquer the world, right? I want to have like my agenda out there and I'm going to protest and I'm going to do it. There's a clean your room. And notice it says empowers his inclination, yitzro, not the one of others. It's not an invitation right now to go be, waving your finger at people. Rather, it's first clean your room, inwards, your internal room. And then you could have your discussion, which is being a hero and potentially conquering a city, if that's, what your mission is. But it starts inwards.
Yeah, and this is very much the Tanya. Like, this is a lot of what the Tanya talks about. Mind controls the heart, and I can see that reflected in like the way that Vervaeke talks about it, and Jordan Peterson, in terms of like the inputs that are going into the values that you have, the inputs that you allow into your eyes, into your mind, are going to control what you're going to see in the world. So before you even perceive anything, you want to be able to have the right inputs. I mean, this is why being involved in Torah, specifically being involved in Torah, is going to create a different salience landscape for you as you go about, right? Being involved with, so putting the right inputs, putting all those things.
I mean, as they say, Ma hafti Toratecha kol hayom hi sichati. How do I love your Torah all day? It's on my lips. It's my conversation. But sicha is generally like on a lower level of conversation. Yeah. And it's not to denigrate. It's to really show that like that is the flow and the constant conversation happening. And that's sort of like you just said, as far as your salience, like that's the frame you're living in, that's like your general conversation is about these topics. Famously for me, I guess in my family, my uncle, God rest his soul, he when his sons joined the army, he gave a speech and he was talking about how his sons and my brother, where they all joined together, how joining the army. As far as there are some religious groups in Israel that talk about this being like that you're sort of foregoing learning, studying the Torah by doing this, and like more than that, like you're putting yourself in a position where you can't even learn, so it's detrimental. Putting aside the conversation, which is like protecting Israel, could seen by some rabbis itself as participating in Torah commandments. However, my uncle mentioned how, as far as it being your sicha, your day-to-day conversation, he says like when you're walking along doing a patrol, you could be walking around doing a patrol and just looking at the sand. You could be walking around doing a patrol and calculating like, if I needed to make an eruv around this, how wide would that be? How would I work around this decision? You could be looking at the matrix, like we always talk about with your Oculus, and that could be your conversation.
Yeah.
When you wake up in the middle of the night, right? We say you could doom scroll, or you could have a conversation which is much deeper than that, and that is what we're being invited to do.
Yeah.
איזה הוא השיר השמח בחלקו, שנאמר יגיע כפיך כי תאכל, אשריך וטוב לך, אשריך בעולם הזה, וטוב לך לעולם הבא. So, as you just said, this is a very famous line, and a line that we like as well, which is, who is rich, one is happy with his lot. And as I mentioned this to my son, there's a sense of, you can never have enough. Kibel mana ratza matayim, right? One who gets 100 then wants 200. I get the new Tesla. I need the better one. I need the iPhone 36. I don't know what number they're on, but I need the newer iPhone, and I need more.
Is it an English term or a Hebrew term? Now I forget. But like you get a finger, you want the whole hand.
That's an English term, but what is it? What is the term though? Give a finger. I know what you're talking about, but I'm also forgetting the term. Anyone remembers the term in English, you're willing to write it down as well.
But
I'm waiting here for a second. Marcel and Hind, is this a Christian channel, brothers? I have a doubt. It is not a Christian channel, brother. It is a religious. It's a Jewish channel that is very open to interfaith conversation and dialogue. This is specifically a review and study of Ethics of Our Fathers, which is a pivotal and staple part of the Jewish Torah tradition and text. And that is what we are reviewing together. You are welcome to listen in, sir. And I hope you're having a good day. Right. So, as we were saying, we're not supposed to be focusing on the next great thing that I want. And it's less talking about, is it bad to be rich? It's not necessarily bad to be rich. And we should also mention this conversation of who is smart and who is strong and who is rich. In a certain sense, you could ask, why are we even having this conversation? Like, why did Ben Zoma just start with like, who is? We're reintroduced with these characters before. And in Jeremiah, I'm not remembering exactly which verse, but it's Ko amar Adonai, al yitalal chacham bechokmato, ve'al yitalal hagibor begvurato, ve'al yitalel ha'ashir be'oshro. And the loose translation is that so God says that a wise man shouldn't be proud of his wisdom, and the hero shouldn't be proud of his strength or heroism, and the rich man shouldn't be proud of his riches. However, those are all in Jewish tradition. Those three are also prerequisites, according to some sages, for prophecy. Okay, and it's not that the prophet needs to be Donald Trump. It's rather the prophet. We want to know that it's not a poor person that you're saying like, oh, like that's the world he's coming from, and he's really thinking about that, and he's biased. We're looking for someone that is in a very good position. He is wise. He is a hero, as in not necessarily strong, and that's why we're giving this breakdown. This is what Ben Zoma is responding to. Who is this wise man? Who is this rich person? Who is this hero? Because ultimately, these are things that are needed, prerequisites, like I said, for prophecy, and that's why we're clarifying this. So going back to this rich person, it's not necessarily that you can't have money. We're saying the opposite. It's a requirement if you want to be get into prophetic status. You at least need to be comfortable. because you could tell the poor prophet that starts talking to the Israelites will be like, how about you go first focus on making sure you could, care for your family before you start, like, preaching, so to speak.
Yeah. And also having the right incentives.
Correct. And for sure, the right incentives is very, very important. So, however, we're saying regardless, though, even that person and the general rich person needs to realize that ultimately the riches are, you need to be happy with your lot. You need to be understand where you are in life and what you have, and it's all a gift from God. And you can't be constantly chasing trying to secure the bag, as they say, and looking constantly to get that payday. Rather, realize that you are happy with your lot, which obviously many psychologists today explain how, like, the stresses of or they talk about how once you have enough money to keep the tax man at bay, more money from that doesn't actually make you happier. However, there's a sense where I need more and I need more. Yeah. And we could see it also stressed in the wording over here. What is it in English, though? In 1 second, where is it? With his lot.
Yeah.
And the verse they use, if you eat of toil of your hands, right? So the sense of here, ultimately, the value of being happy is when it's the toil of your hands. Because yes, you could be given money or you could win the lottery, but ultimately we find tremendous pleasure and specifically getting paid for the work that we specifically done, where we go from A to Z. We were involved. We did it. We put in the time and effort as well. And that allows us to enjoy what we're earning in a much fuller and more enjoyable manner.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how you experience, but that's definitely how I experienced it as well.
No, definitely.
Like the amount of effort you put in, obviously, changes that. And the Rambam famously also talks about how it's a great value someone that is self-sufficient as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions or onwards?
I guess I don't know if we touched on. It says "Ashrecha ba'olam hazeh v'tov lecha la'olam haba," right? So it makes a distinction.
Right. So fortunate are you, and good is to you. Fortunate are you in this world, and good is to you in the world to come. So I'm not using the English translation over here. I'm using the Hebrew translation, but that Ashrecha v'tov lach. So that, well, again, how the way they translate in English is Ashrecha is you are fortunate. So that is really sort of in a certain level, that's a lower level of enjoyment that you're enjoying in this world. However, the tov lach, which we also have when God created the world and it was good, that's a fuller sense that you have, but that's talking in the world to come, where there's a sense of not only did you strive to do well and you were happy with your lot, rather you will fully appreciate and you'll fully appreciate what God has actually given to you, and you will be able to see it in its full sense in the world to come.
Yeah, and then I have a small technical question, because I sometimes see this and I don't always know the reason, but it says tov lach. Why is it lach? Seems like it's the feminine, but makes more sense that it would be the masculine. So is there a reason here, or
no? It's just, I mean, there could be a reason. This is just a very also a stylistic sense of how Chazal writes.
Okay.
Also, but I can't give you. I'm saying it's not speaking to the feminine. It's speaking just general, both to it's general to both men and females. But let me write that down though for a second.
Yeah, but there's the default that I know of is you speak masculine, and then
I don't remember any like specific teaching behind that, but again, I could be wrong, so I will let you know. And if in some way Yosef is watching this, he seems to be a wellspring of knowledge. Okay. You want to take that in English?
Yeah. Who is honorable? One who honors his fellows. As is stated, for to those who honor me, I accord honor. Those who scorn me shall be demeaned.
Right. So here we're saying that you would think a high status person, right? Not because he's mean necessarily, but doesn't really need to be, doesn't need to, it's not dignified for him, or, to debase himself or to lower himself and dealing with like every individual, or just like, the random Joe Schmo on the street. And they need to distinguish themselves from like the rest of the people.
Yeah.
But the Mishnah is basically reaffirming that we need to be honoring other beings as well, and specifically the ones that are less fortunate than us. And we have to realize, like we just said, who is wise that learns from everyone. So connected to that is also respecting them. Now you could say like, well, I could learn from them and I don't have to respect them. But if you respect them, then you'll be able to, they will express themselves in a better manner, which would then allow you to learn from them. And that, I would say, that is, again, stressing what we spoke about King Solomon, which is like the king was speaking to the fool, the deaf man, and the child.
Yeah.
Right? Because he himself also realized it doesn't matter what my status is. Ultimately, I'm seeking truth and I'm seeking wisdom where I could find it. And because man is made in God's image, there's that spark and there's that truth and there's a unique sense that every person has as well.
Yeah, it's almost also on a technical level in terms of, and this is what this verse talks about. Like what is respect? What is respect? Respect is something that you get from others. So if you're a king, if you don't respect the people underneath you, then you at least eventually you will see that you're not as respected, right? People would not bow to you every time you cross the street on the way to the castle. They won't go, make an effort to make gestures of respect, throw flowers, do all those things. So if you don't accord respect, then the wellspring of where respect comes from won't kind of keep coming up.
That's very true. Exactly. There's something I was going to say, but you were mentioning that, but it floated away from me. Sorry. 1 second. I'm trying to still grab it. No. Yes, I was going to say, remember that even Moses and Aaron in the verses when they're speaking to Pharaoh, they also use a respectful terminology, because there's a sense because it's royalty, and we spoke about this, how you have to respect kavod lamalchut or kavod larashut, but there's also a sense of here as well, which is like still recognizing that we have to respect everyone when we can.
Yeah.
It says that that's whatever. I won't go down that route. All right. Next. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So here you go. His study partner. Ben Azai Omer, Havei ratz lemitzvah kala uborach min ha'avera, shemitzvah goreret mitzvah ve'avera goreret avera, sheschar mitzvah mitzvah, ve'schar avera avera. Ben Azai would say, run to pursue a minor mitzvah and flee from a transgression. For a mitzvah brings another mitzvah, and a transgression brings another transgression. For the reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah, and the reward for transgression is transgression. So, as we mentioned, Ben Azai is also Shimon Ben Azai, the two Simons, the study partner of who we just mentioned, Ben Zoma. He was known for being like a super diligent learner. I'm trying to think, what's the word for lishkod? Shagdan.
Diligent, conscientious?
Maybe conscientious, okay. So much so that Rabbi Akiva was known to accept his answers in certain cases, as change his mind and agree with him. As we were mentioning earlier about like what we require from a prophet, basically, there's these things he needs to do. He himself was never married. He says like his love was for the Torah, and he couldn't like spend any other time doing anything else. He really only wanted to be focusing on that. And there's a sense that he didn't learn any Torah until he married Rabbi Akiva's daughter. That's one of the versions, that his rabbi is his father-in-law as well. And from that point on, sort of emulating his father-in-law, he wanted to do like non-stop learning. However, ultimately, as we mentioned earlier, he finds his death or his sanity is taken from him, depending on which version you go to, when he goes into the Pardes with his father-in-law, which I guess was an awkward conversation with Rabbi Akiva's daughter. Honey, it was a crazy day. Okay, so Have Ratz LeMitzvah Kala. So what are we really talking about over here when we talk about a mitzvah kala? So a general, a classic example of a minor mitzvah would be shiluach haken. Shiluach haken, I don't know what the exact translation is in English, but it's basically the commandment. If you're going to take eggs from a nest, you have to first shoo the mother away. You don't want the mother to have to experience her children being taken away from her. In a certain sense, this is also similar to not having a calf in his mother's milk. Also, it's too traumatic to have such a thing happen together, basically. And right, so we don't want to have that. So it's the harder mitzvot, ironically, are the ones that are in your daily routine, which it's hard to keep it going constantly. The either mitzvot are ones that are not in your routine, but they're easily accessible. You just need to do a small little deviation, right? I just need to go and I need to shoo them away. And it's not asking much from you. And this is allowing me, and that would be considered a minor mitzvah. Just to stress over here, we don't see the word minor when it talks about transgression over here. Yeah. And the reason is because with regards to transgression, they're all easy. It's always easy to follow your evil inclination because that's what your inclination wants. So it's not a challenge for you to do it necessarily. However, it's always easier for you to do that as well. And some say when we say a minor mitzvah is talking about you should start with the minor mitzvahs. Yeah. Start with the easy mitzvahs for dummies and then make your way up, basically, because if you jump into the deep end, it might be too overwhelming for you.
Yeah, it sounds very much like a Kiruv principle, like a Chabad.
Right, exactly. Right. Baby steps, as they say.
Even though I've never considered shooing
shooing the birds. I know your wife was like, "What are you doing, Ben?" He's like, "I'm trying." Some say that the running, right, the sense of the physical action of doing this is showing you that even for something easy, you should put in the effort. You should do hard work even to do something easy. Yeah. And there's even people that interpret it that you should run and do it. It's sort of the early bird gets the worm. Basically, if you don't do it, and it's an easy one, someone else is going to take the opportunity from you.
So and there's some kind of gamification here.
Right. So you see that old man trying to cross the street. You know what? Even if he doesn't want to cross the street, you're going to pull him across that sidewalk. You're going to get that. You're going to get that mitzvah.
Yeah. Right. Actually, this is interesting. I mean, this is kind of silly, but I actually think that I haven't seen all of that, but for me, that's been something that's been really interesting to notice is that as I've delved in more into Judaism and Torah, one thing that was interesting me was that the things that it was optimizing for were much more positive. So it was like, okay, so I can play all these different games and I can do all these different kind of stuff. But this set of these set of principles help me optimize much more, for things that are just so much more good, or what I would be helpful, what I would see as helpful, right? Like helping the old man or the old woman cross the street. And it's much more specific about trying to optimize for that and celebrating that kind of stuff, which is kind of like, if you really think about it, is like, why wouldn't I want to play the game that optimizes for that? So that's been something that was kind of also insightful for me as I've kind of engaged with it more.
Etz chaim lemachazikim ba, right? It's the tree of life to those who hold it. And like, it's a tree of life to those who want to participate in this game, right? So you could say that the ante is high, but the reward is far greater.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we said, Have ratza mitzvah kala, uboreach mina avera. Flee from this transgression. So here, while it's sort of, obvious that you'd want to, run away from transgression, right? And we're using the word run away. Like you should, if you encounter it on your path, you should try to deviate as quickly as possible from whatever is, you should choose a different path basically. But again, to stress on the differences over here, if with regards to the purpose of a minor mitzvah, you want to be running, which is running towards something, right? Yeah. It's more of towards something, ascending somewhere. However, running away is moving back, right? I want to like quickly get away from that. And, that is sort of leading you towards your transgression. You want to get away from that. You need to sort of backtrack and see where you went wrong. And that's why you're not running away from something. And well, barach is fleeing. You're not fleeing towards something. You're fleeing from something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was just looking at, because I just remember something about, I don't know if the Shema is talking about the eyes, but does it talk about the feet as well?
Yeah, but lech techa baderech.
Yeah. In terms of, incorporating or using your whole, or using your feet are a tool that you can use to run towards a transgression or run towards a transgression or run away from it and towards mitzvah.
Well, you have b'shofkecha u'bekumecha, right? When you're resting or when you wake up.
Mm-hmm.
So, like when you give your soul, so to speak, when you have your minor death, when you die, when you go to sleep, you're there. When you wake up, right? It's when you're born again, you're born into it. Mm-hmm. That is showing that you are that, and that goes back to ma'ahavti toratacha kol hayom sichati. Mm-hmm. You should be walking down the path, right? Comfortably. However, on that path, like we said, you're going to see this minor mitzvah. You should run on that path that you're on towards it. Yeah. However, if that path turns into transgression, livroch, you got to flee, you got to turn back. But this is all happening on this path.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
All right. Shemitzvah goreret mitzvah. The avera goreret avera, right? So we see that there is a ripple effect, so to speak, when I'm doing these things. And there's a sense where you could look at this that, on one sense, that if you do this and you practice this, it becomes second nature. Mm-hmm. And you end up finding that once you open your eyes to this sort of mindset, the opportunities start presenting themselves wherever you go, right? Sort of like a pay it forward sort of attitude. And then you find out that you could be helping everyone because now you're looking at that world, or, you've put in that game now where you're like, these are opportunities. These are mitzvah points. I could be taking advantage of this, not in a bad way, but like I could be, reaching my full potential over here. And in that mindset, suddenly those opportunities start presenting themselves more, both for the bad and for the good, right? We talk about the slippery slope because very quickly you find yourself deeper and deeper and deeper inside. And on the flip side, you're presenting yourself with more options to do better things. There is a sense also where all the 613 ultimately are one large mitzvah. They're all interconnected. So by doing one, it references you to the second one. Now, while that's not true specifically about every mitzvah that's out there, however, one is we see each other as a family, right? So like the mitzvahs that you're doing, let's say if a woman's doing a mitzvah that's not related to me, she's still doing it in a sense as part of my family, whether it's my wife or whether it's people of like the larger Jewish people that we're doing together. Mm-hmm. Or you could also say that we could see that there is the commandment of phylacteries, but then there's subcategories of those things that break down. So all these things are suddenly connected to one commandment that has many, many subcategories as well. So while doing one mitzvah will almost always drag you into, or what's the terminology word over here in English? It brings another. It brings another. Here it says that goreret is dragging you, but basically there's a force where you feel like you are being compelled and pulled towards it.
Yeah. So I was actually watching a video comparing Western medical ethics and Jewish medical ethics.
Maimonides, man.
Actually, well, Maimonides was definitely there. This was on Chabad, but one of the principles that it was talking about that's different is that in medical ethics, it's a closed system where you can only derive your principles or the ethics from within the medical profession and medical clinical experience and all that stuff. This is roughly what it was saying, as opposed to Jewish ethics, where you can derive different ethics from various different. You can bring them from the laws of guardianship, ownership could apply to the laws of marriage, could apply to medical ethics. So, for example, the medical ethics, there is something about how the idea that you are only that your body is only on loan makes you responsible to it, just like when somebody gives you something as a security deposit, you are responsible to keep that safe. So this could relate to suicide or something like that. Or
that's a great example how all these things could be connected and be applied differently. Yeah. So that's why there's a sense where you're doing one, and it's really if you're opening up like a positive Pandora's box over here, right? You're allowing yourself now to interact with all these things if you choose to do so.
Yeah. And it has this kind of like in the Pajonian sense, it has this fractal nature.
Right.
That they were emphasizing there, how Judaism kind of like the fractality goes around, like the whole ethics are connected to each other.
Definitely. And that was part of the discussion with the Noahides, which is like really there's like a much more universal conversation that we're supposed to be having. And, we're also supposed to be, shining the light on the path available for all humans, basically. Okay. Schar mitzvah mitzvah, uschar avera avera. The reward for mitzvah is a mitzvah, and the reward for transgression is a transgression. So this is connected again to the lines we just read earlier, but you could look at this as part of the reward is the fact that it gives you an option to do another mitzvah, like we just said. That's the reward. Part of it is the fact that the feeling you get enjoying doing the mitzvah itself is the reward. One is the fact that you get to do the mitzvah itself is the reward, as in not that you enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it. So again, it's one is if I do a mitzvah, it gives me another mitzvah to do, like we just said earlier. Like if for a mitzvah brings another mitzvah, that was the reward, that it brought another mitzvah. One was that I enjoyed doing so, and the enjoyment I have, that is the reward. And one is that I'm doing the mitzvah itself is the reward, that I get to participate in this game, so to speak. And obviously the flip side for all the negatives. If I do negative things, I'm back on that slippery slope, and I will be invited to look at the world in that way. And then suddenly my ethics change, my morality changes. What I think makes sense makes less sense. Yeah. As well as we talk about the Overton window sort of shifting and changing. The more you push it, the more you are sort of including a crazy conversation to be invited inside.
Yeah.
All right. Number 3, Gimel. Hu haya omer. So we're talking about Ben Azai. We're continuing. He would say,
"Yep.
Al tiyeh baz lechol adam ve'al tiyeh maflig lechol davar she'en lecha adam she'en lo sha'ah ve'en lecha davar she'en lo makom." He would also say, "Do not scorn any man and do not discount anything, for there is no man who has not his hour, and no thing that has not its place." So it's a beautiful little Mishnah over here. So, and obviously we're seeing echoes over here from the conversation we were just having earlier as well. Like this is all in the same
person.
Right, exactly. So you would think after we read the last Mishnah, like after I did all those things, right? I'm the Gibor and I'm the thing and I'm the that. It goes back to what Jeremiah was talking about. I might think that that I did all these great things. So, all other regular people, so to speak, seem unnecessary to me, and I feel like I could denigrate them. And it's warning you, sort of, from if you've gotten this far, we're just warning you again. Be very careful how you treat other people as well. And just as far as denigrating someone over here, it's less about at least the way it's interpreted. It's less about and here it says like scorn. So I don't know what the history of that word is basically, but the sages say that we're talking about over here about basically letting someone that they're almost like not alive, like you basically consider them insignificant. It's less than ignoring them. It's more that like what you're saying doesn't matter, and you're not interested in their perspective. And more than that, you find like the fundamental point that he has, and like you destroy that. Like you're showing him that like the things that you're standing on, your whole what's the word we use today on social media? Ben Shapiro destroys, right? So the destroying part, that is what you should be avoiding. Don't be destroying. Because destroying is and it's sad because that's like the terms we use, but like it's almost that's literally what you're doing. At the end of those debates, you've killed this person in a certain sense. There's a sense where like this person, like he built this whole house of cards. You can be like, well, it's necessary. He needs to learn. But the Torah is telling you be very, very careful. And you should be very careful because if you're very wise and very powerful and very wealthy, you might feel very quick on the trigger to destroy someone. Right? So this is, again, not only you shouldn't be destroying people, but when you're having your conversations, you shouldn't be walking into the conversation focusing on the points of tension or disagreement, right?
Yeah.
And like don't be trying to create a separation, and even if the things like seem like irrelevant, right? Like you shouldn't just assume that like, oh, you could just like wave these things away. There's an interpretation which means like al tiyeh maflig, which is don't like belittle things. Like someone tells you something, don't be like, well, that's nonsense. Like there could be a perspective over there. And again, this is echoing the fact that like listen to every person because he's wise, and like there's something to gain from these things as well. There's an interpretation which is things that we've spoke about in the past, which is be very careful with your words. There's consequences to your actions, basically. Like davar as in dvarim, not only things but also words, which is like the words you say could end up being very, very divisive, and because of that have very, very dire consequences.
Right. Yeah. So just to emphasize the difference here. So here it says al tiyeh maflig, and in English it says do not discount. And what you're talking about, you mentioned separation, and so in Hebrew the maflig is more related to, or also related to, separating.
Right.
So, and so what comes to mind also, it's funny that this word came up in the Tanya conversation last week. And I asked Jacob why, maflig or peleg.
Peleg, lo plige. There's no disagreement. There's no machloket.
Yeah. So that I wasn't, because the word aflaga, like to sail, came to mind. But again, sailing, maybe you're cutting the water, so you're separating the water. But anyway, the main point that I wanted to make was that do not discount. I will also offer the interpretation of do not be a contrarian, like all times a contrarian, like somebody just says, yeah, but like I have experiences sometimes that I talk to people, and I know that throughout the conversation I can tell that I'll state my opinion or I'll say something, and they will always start their last sentence with no, there's another, or but, or and I know this is how it's gonna go, but I go through it because like I know this is their personality, at least at that point, and it doesn't it's not a nice experience, but it exists.
I have this friend He does
Maybe
this
this
all.
is good. Maybe this happens in Israeli circles more, though.
I have a friend where he it's a pet peeve of his. So, like an example, because people just do it sort of second nature. They'll be talking like you just said. So, but about random things, right? So he'll say, yesterday, my wife and we went to a hotel and it was really nice. So his friend will answer, no, but my wife and we did it. So he stops and he's like, no, not no. Yes, I did do those things. And like, now you could tell me your thing. But he always does. He's like, no, not no. Yes. So yes, people have a sense of like immediately challenging. And it says, because they're not trying to challenge, but it's almost in their head. They want to be like, stop. Like, I want to tell you my thing, basically. I want to one up in a certain sense. So I think that's a very good point. And that's also one of the other, not other interpretations, but la fliegen to split is also one of their interpretations is don't assume that the bad thing that you think will happen won't happen. As in basically don't disconnect yourself from reality. As in you're in a position right now where you're saying like, well, listen, like you just said, divisive. Like, I'm in this position. I'm going to say X, but there's not going to be a ramification for that. Like, that's not going to affect me. And the attitude is like, don't look at the world that way. There is a cause and effect. The things you do will have an outcome, and they could very easily affect you as well. All right, continuing on. שאין לך אדם שאין לו שעה, ואין לך דבר שאין לו מקום. For there is no man who has not his hour, and no thing that has not its place. So like they're saying over here, every man has his moment, and we want to leave space for that person to be able to tap into it when the day comes. And if you don't allow for that to happen, it's very difficult. Like you hear about all these stories that no one gave me a chance, and there's one guy, he believed in me. But if we were all those people that believed in people, then you would have a lot more of those Cinderella stories coming up, because there would be a lot more people seeing that. And again, this relates all the way to every man has his moment, because you could learn something from every man, and you shouldn't denigrate that every man. And all this conversation is basically giving the space and articulating the good faith conversation, basically, where you're going to be steel manning, where you're going to be playing good faith, where you're going to be calm, where you're going to be understanding, where you're not going to run to in the conversation. You might disagree, but you're not going to decide to stress that or focus on that necessarily. And this doesn't mean you can't have a healthy debate, because again, this is happening at the same time. All this is happening in the context of sages are going to debate these lines themselves and are going to have different interpretation of what these lines mean. So there's a healthy debate, but it's all happening with love, compassion, and understanding. And again, we need to be able to discern, but we need to be open to the possibility that day will come. And you could see that like out of Babel, which is like, devastation, Abraham comes out of it. And out of Sodom, we have Lot, and we have Ruth through that, and then we have King David. Right. And God uses the word matzati, I found, both on David and of Abraham, which is even God is sort of letting us know, I should have been paying more attention, but like I suddenly found them. I was like, here they are. And you could say like, well, if you were looking more, you're going to find more people like that. But like God was like surprised, because I don't say he learned a lesson. God is actually doing that. He's looking around and he's scouring because he is paying attention. And then he says like, I found them. I found this one and I found this one, and I brought them out of the muck. I brought them out of nothing. So I think all these together, all these three Mishnayot that we just read are clearly feeding off each other and working off each other. And you could assume the fact that the authors of three of these were study partners. So you could see also that this was probably like a very robust and alive conversation happening between them as well. And it makes sense that these are people that are going into the Pardes, going into the Kabbalistic worlds where there's a lot more synthesis and unifications and a lot less of these divisions, because we're trying to all get back to the one. And ironically, Rabbi Akiva warns them, when you guys get into the orchard, so to speak, you're going to see the pillars of water, and don't assume that you understand what you're seeing. And the sense over there is also, you could look at all of this, like the wise man, don't assume. And everyone has his moments. So like it's when you're going to look at something, don't assume suddenly you understand what it is, or that your high status is protecting you from this, or that these things are not related. Rather, these things are related. These things are interconnected, and you have to look at this that way and be able to discern and understand these things on a much deeper, intricate level.
Yeah. And it seems, I mean, that seems very hard, because to be able to assume that everything in the world, everything that you see has some kind of potential for insight, means that you need to track so many different things, that it's effortful to be able to do that. So
it works with if that is your mode, then it becomes second
easier.
nature, right? Yeah. As you were just saying right now, this reminds you of the Tanya conversation, right? So that is making those connections. That is, and Rabbi Akiva will take that all the way from like what the word means to the shape of the letter, right? All those levels have connections of how we're looking about those stuff. And we were another sense where we could see this and why the connection is so important. If I'm walking down the street and I see the beautiful tree, initially, if I stop and make the blessing, that's a problem because I severed the connection. If it's happening within the flow and I don't stop, right? Remember the stress is the way the mission is written, hifsik. But if I don't stop and I continue that flow and I'm in that interconnectedness and I recognize that flow goes from me being wise to the deaf man on the street, that we're all connected, then I could see the truth in him. I could see God's image in him, and I could actually discern, learn from him as well.
Yeah.
Beseder, sir, we'll stop over here.